on this pretty spring day. Nice not to have rain for several days, so really appreciate you coming out in a really busy spring. It's my pleasure to provide welcoming comments this morning and to introduce one of our speakers. Believe it or not, this is our 10th annual business breakfast sponsored by the Windsor Chamber of Commerce and the town's Economic Development Commission. For those who don't know me, I'm Peter Souza. I'm the town manager here in Windsor, and I bring greetings from the Mayor John Trinks and the entire Windsor Town Council. And I'd just like a few comments before I introduce our speaker. Windsor certainly is part of not only the MetroHartford economy, but also our global economy, as many of you know and you participate in. We truly are part of the Hartford metropolitan economic engine. We have 26,000 jobs in our community. And our community only has 29,000 residents. And so you step back a little bit and think about that, what that is. And obviously of those 29,000 folks, we only have about 15 or 16,000 that are actually in the workforce or of working age. And so, as I like to say, we are an importer of jobs, if you will. We have those jobs that are in all sorts of different sectors. And as you heard me speak in the past, it's a wide variety of sectors. It's everything from advanced manufacturing, from hospitality, insurance, financial services, from companies that make and design medical devices, and aviation engineering and beyond. And I highlight that because of the diversity. We're not a one-horse town. We have of those 26,000 jobs, we have over 20% of those is in insurance or financial services. We have about 16% that are in advanced manufacturing. And so we are a very diverse community, not only in terms of our residents, but also in terms of our employment sectors. So I thank you for your continued investment and commitment to the town of Windsor. And it's my pleasure to introduce David Griggs. David is the president and CEO of the MetroHartford Alliance, the region's business and economic development organization. The Alliance has been undergoing a fast and furious transformation under David's leadership. And I'm looking forward to hearing David's comments this morning. The Alliance has always been a very good partner for the Windsor community. And David has come in the year plus or so he's been here, he certainly has carried on that partnership. And the Metro Alliance really is here to promote the economic engine here in the greater Hartford area, as well as to promote the Hartford area as a great place to live and to build a career in your family's future. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring David up here. David most recently was with the Minneapolis-St. Paul Economic Development Organization, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. But I just want to note that that organization serves 16 counties. So when we think about our parochial view here in north central Connecticut, other folks are looking at economic development in a much broader scale. And so I'd like to just leave you with that as we talk about, and obviously I have a job. My job is to promote the town of Windsor and make Windsor as good as it can be. But we need to be strategic partners with our folks north of the state line, as well as south as far as New Haven and beyond. So thank you for coming out this morning. And David, look forward to your comments.
I'm going to try to play a video that we just put together before I get started. I apologize, I'm probably going to cause horrible feedback because I'll use the mic, but we'll see what we can do.
MetroHartford Alliance to me is an organization that really represents this greater Hartford region on the stage in the arena of economic development, bringing together and fostering collaboration amongst local stakeholders, businesses, public actors, individuals, entrepreneurs to really position ourselves to compete in a national and global marketplace.
and recruiting, finding all the highlights of our region that could be used to sell and attract businesses.
I think the MetroHartford Alliance has done a fantastic job of pulling together a lot of different kinds of voices in conversation about economic development.
Providing employment for an individual allows that individual to live his or her life to the fullest. That individual's family now has an opportunity to be a contributing source to the community.
It's very important that our economic development organization is outselling the region to outside companies, but also selling the region to our companies that are already here and making sure that this area, this region, the state is considered for their growth.
Jobs follow talent, and talent is the lifeblood of a community, it's the lifeblood of a company, it's the ultimate competitive advantage. We have a tremendous base of professional expertise, everything from aerospace to healthcare to professional services to entrepreneurs and startups, and of course insurance.
You've got some of the largest industry in the world centered here, right here in Hartford. And those industries are committed to being here. They invest in our communities, they care about our communities, and I think that's really the story that needs to be told.
The MetroHartford Alliance is absolutely essential to making sure that the region is viewed positively and, more importantly, understood.
The cultural diversity that exists here is really as good as anywhere.
There's so much history. There's arts and literature and theater and music and amazing parks. You can hike, you can bike, you can go in the water. It's just an amazing array of things to do.
The world is increasingly competitive. This is the toughest labor market in the country. And our ability to make sure that people understand everything this region has to offer, that makes all the difference in the world.
The level of collaboration and excitement about the momentum that we're establishing is something very positive.
Educational institutions, cultural institutions, the captains of industry, the big players and the small businesses, making sure that everybody's got a place at the table to talk about economic development, I think is part of the magic that's happening here.
We have to continue to think outside the box at the Alliance as to what it is we can build next to make this a really, really attractive organization.
We have to make sure that all of those players are bringing the tools, the resources, the experience, the expertise they have to present a unified front so we can create an opportunity to attract additional investment.
We are the insurance capital of the world.
We are an educated workforce with top colleges and universities.
We are Industry 4.0 and innovation.
We are aerospace excellence.
We are global brands and world-class healthcare.
We are the MetroHartford Alliance.
We are Hartford.
Sorry for the audio difficulties there. I better stop before we start into YouTube. Our screensaver is appropriate. So good morning again, and thank you for having me here this morning. And Peter, you've already stolen some of my thunder this morning with your introduction, because what I want to talk to you today about is the evolution of the MetroHartford Alliance. In the video, I hope you heard some of the key words there: growth, evolve, partnerships, a lot of the same things that Peter just mentioned. Because that is what the MetroHartford Alliance is, and that is what Hartford is. And, you know, when I moved here, goodness, about 14 months ago now, you know, one of the first things people were asking me was it going to be a Red Sox or Yankees? And that was really the only way we defined ourselves as a region. After that, everybody was from Windsor, or Granby, or from Simsbury, or from Hartford, or from Glastonbury. But nobody was from Hartford, right? Nobody claimed to be from Hartford. And while I appreciate that pride in your hometown and what have you, it was still a little bit of a shock to me. You know, I came from Minneapolis, St. Paul, where it didn't matter what suburb you lived in, you either had a Minneapolis address or a St. Paul address. And that was it. You could live wherever you wanted, but everybody wanted to be part of the bigger, the greater, the big piece. So while all that is fine, you know, how does that affect us here? And Peter mentioned it a little bit. My data is a little bit different, but still very close. 28,000 jobs is the number I came up with. My data is older. 28,000 jobs.
That sounds better, thank you.
Yeah. 28,000 jobs here in Windsor. And of those 28,000 jobs, 2,400 are Windsor residents. 2,400 are Windsor residents. So without a region, Windsor doesn't exist. And without Windsor, our region doesn't exist. Because the majority of people live somewhere else but come here, right? So the region actually matters. It's important. It's real. And I guarantee you it's real because I do Day Hill Road every day and 91 every day, and those things are backed up like nobody's business, so you know people are moving. But the other piece to that are the 14,000 Windsor residents that go elsewhere. So you've got 14,000 residents that work in other parts of our region as well. So you really are a big driver for what happens in our region. But for us to compete on a global scale, and we need to compete on a global scale, whether we like it or not, all our companies are competing on a global scale. We have to compete with them. We have to start telling a story about Hartford as a collective, not Windsor individually or Glastonbury individually, but of Hartford. Because that's what we're competing with on a global scale. If you're sitting in Chicago, you're a site selector sitting in Chicago, and you're trying to figure out where am I going to put my next 100 jobs, they're looking at us as a region and comparing our region to other regions. Apples to apples, they use MSAs, Metropolitan Statistical Area. And they're going to use our data and compare us to wherever else they're looking at. So if we're not talking about ourselves as a region, if we're not talking about ourselves as the 1.2 million people that we are, we're losing the opportunity to compete. Another word that I hope you heard was evolve. It's been mentioned a few times. And when I think about the evolution of the organization, and I've only been with it for a little over a year, so I don't know everything that the Alliance did before, but I can tell you that the number one kind of word that we use is focus. Focus. We're going to focus on jobs and investment. That's it. And, if that sounds a little bit familiar, it is, because that's been the Alliance's kind of tagline, competing for jobs, talent, and capital. That's not changing. What's changing is the way we go about doing it. And that's where the focus comes in. Everything we do will be focused on economic development and our ability to compete on a global basis. An example I'll give you, geography. We always talk about our geography. Our geography hasn't changed, right? Boston is up over yonder, New York's down over yonder. They've been there, they continue to be there, they're huge, they're global marketplaces, that hasn't changed. The narrative that I've heard is they're great places for us to get away to. Right? But that narrative is changing because we're different than them. If you look at our cost of living, if you look at our quality of life, right, how long did it take you to get here this morning? And compare that same mileage commute in New York or Boston, right? That means something. That's legit. That's something we can market. Those differences between our market and their markets is what makes us great. This is what we're going to start talking about. The differences that make us great compared to our neighbors. So we will be out competing for jobs. We will be out competing for talent. And we are a global player. You mentioned insurance and aerospace. We are the insurance capital of the world. Right? That title has not gone anywhere. We just stopped using it. Right? We are the insurance capital of the world. Now, when I go on the road, and we've been on the road, Becky and I were in Dallas, I don't know, a month ago. And we would start out with, we're the insurance capital of the world, which led immediately to, yeah, we know that, but what else? What an entree, right? You can't make that up. Every time. Well, but what else? Well, let me tell you what else. Do you know that we reinvented, essentially, the jet engine in our region? And for those of you who aren't familiar with Pratt & Whitney and all the things that are going on over there, they've created a new engine, the geared turbofan engine. This engine, now this is an industry that was struggling to find 0.25% of fuel efficiency by introducing lighter and different kind of components. This new engine is 16% more fuel efficient than any other engine on the market. 16% when they were trying to find 0.25%. And it's 76% quieter than any other engine on the market. So when you think about airports and where airports are located and all of the problems that airlines face when you put an airport someplace like Windsor locks and then housing props up around it, and then the neighbors start to complain about the noise that the airport is creating in their neighborhood, 76% quieter. It's revolutionary. It changes everything. It truly does. When you look at what the airlines are doing now with their existing fleet, they can go further than they could before, all because of a new engine. And that new engine, by the way, once Pratt & Whitney gets fully ramped up, they can create about 1,000 engines a year. They have a back order right now of 9,000. We're going to be making engines here in our market. I'm not good at math, but I think it's going to be for a couple of years. That's what we're going to go out and compete with. And you mentioned your key industries. Windsor really is a microcosm of our region as a whole. Insurance, you're number one. Same for our region. Aerospace, number two. Same for our region. The Windsor story really is the Hartford story. The industries you're great at are the industry this region is known for. The industries that we're going to compete in globally are the industries that are already here in Windsor. What an opportunity. And I do truly believe Windsor is really well positioned to take advantage of everything that Hartford is. And I mean Hartford as our region. The other thing that I've learned here is you have to keep telling them what your definition of Hartford is. Hartford is a region to me. But one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to get Hartford off the best kept secret list. And people don't know who we are. That's why Becky and I are out calling on these site selectors and companies in places like Dallas, New York, Phoenix. We're going to be at the Paris Air Show. Becky's going to be at Select USA, which is a big international show down in DC. in a couple weeks. We're going to be out telling the story. We have to get people talking about Hartford again, and talking about Hartford for all the great things that we are. Insurance capital of the world, aerospace innovators, startups. The startup scene that we've got in this region is amazing. We're disrupting our own industries from within. That's when you know you've got it. Becky's even taken our story to Israel. We partnerships. We partnered with Hartford Healthcare to go to Israel to talk about health IT. We have a new accelerator that's going to be created at Hartford Healthcare that will help to accelerate health IT companies. So off Becky goes to try to bring more of the Israeli tech companies here to Hartford. This is what we will be doing, partnering with our leading institutions, partnering with our towns and cities, and going out and telling the story about who Hartford is. And the story won't be without data. You know, I threw out a few data points, and you know, Peter beat me to the punch on most of them. But we need to tell our story through data. We can't just use anecdotal evidence. We need to get right down to the nitty-gritty of who we are, how we compete, the cost of labor here compared to other parts of the country. These are the things that we have to have at our fingertips in order to compete. So we've created our own internal research department to help tell our story about who we are through data. And then we send it over to marketing to make it look all fancy and wonderful. And then we take it out to the world. The video that you just saw, and you know, we've been talking about this internally, everything we do has draft on it. Everything. The video you just saw looked all nice, polished, and done, draft. Right? Because we're going to learn something once we get out and start delivering that message. When we get out and start delivering a message about insurance or aerospace, we're going to learn something. We're going to learn about a company that we had here that we didn't know about, that maybe changes the dynamic or the messaging that we need to deliver. Or the market could change. We've all seen markets change. You know, we don't have to go back very far, 2008, to see how, you know, the world can turn in an instant. We have to be ready. We have to be able to respond to those kinds of things. So everything we do has draft on it. To that end, I encourage you, if you see something from us and you think it could be better, tell us. Accept that draft is written on it and give us your input. We need to represent ourselves in the best way we can, and that's with your input. And before I end, I'll ask you for a couple things. One, continue to do events like this. Continue to network with other businesses. I would encourage you to think regionally. Find ways to take your business and sell it to other companies and buy from other companies within our region. You know, we can help pull ourselves up through events just like this. The other thing I would ask you is begin to tell your Hartford story. You know, we hear all the time about the negative press that Hartford gets. We yell about the Current, or we yell about the Business Journal. Well, the only way we can combat that is through you, through your stories, through why you live here, why you love being here in the Hartford region, and telling that story to people outside the region. In fact, tell it to people inside the region. Some of us need that little boost sometimes too. So I'll end there. I'd love to take questions from the crowd, from you, if you have questions that we could answer. Any questions? Too early? Go for it.
Hi. I'd be remiss in not mentioning one thing that I think is paramount for why we all live here, and that's the quality of life. A couple of quick things. Incidentally, I help out and volunteer at the New England Air Museum region. Air Museum, Pratt & Whitney, engines. I don't think I have to promote to the rest of the crowd because they all seem to know me. Also, the Windsor Historical Society, which tells the story of our region. But put that in your message if you get a chance. You said it was draft. I think because of where we are, if you're in New York, within an hour you can be in the most beautiful part of the country. Connecticut is the gateway, or you can go to Connecticut and have all of New England in an hour and a half from these metropolitan areas. Okay, I'm done.
We also have history, right? I mean, you mentioned the historical
The
society.
oldest town in Connecticut.
And again, you keep beating me to the punch. Much is being made about Hartford's 400 coming up. But I think there's at least one other town from 1636 as well. And I'm pretty sure that's Windsor. So, again, as we start to look down the road and to celebrate 400, it really is a regional thing, because there are actually 3 towns that have their 400th anniversary at the same time. Windsor, Hartford, and Wethersfield. So even our 400th birthday just comes back to the fact that we are a region, right? This region was settled at the same time. So, but thank you. The Air Museum, we're doing pictures for staff now, and we're going to shoot up to the Air Museum is our backup for an indoor, but the weather's so great. We're doing it yesterday and today. We want to be outside, and the weather's awesome. But thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there any partnerships that you're doing with schools and young people? What is going on around there?
Yeah, the key for us is to help educate less about the students, more about parents and advisors. We have a manufacturing sector that's struggling to find workforce. And, maybe it's my own ideas, but I think part of the problem we have is as parents, we think manufacturing as being, dark, dirty, and dangerous. And manufacturing today is none of that, right? It is high tech, but a lot of parents need to be educated on what manufacturing really is and what the opportunities are in manufacturing. So, as the MetroHartford Alliance, do we have a direct connection to trying to develop workforce? No. There's a lot of people in that space. But what we can do is to help educate the influencers of our future workforce in terms of what are going to be the jobs of the future, right? I've got 2 kids. I want them to have a job. They need to get out of the house at some point in time, right? But, part of that is me thinking, all right, who are you, and what could you do, right? But part of that, what can you do, is what will somebody pay you to do in 10 or 15 years? And that's where we need to start helping our influencers of children. understand where our companies are going, where industries are going, what manufacturing is today, so that hopefully we don't have these, I mean, and look, workforce shortage in some regard is a great thing, right? That means more people are employed. I would rather have more jobs than people, but we need to bring more people in too. Yes, ma'am.
So you were mentioning about educating the parents and the influencers. Maybe a video would help, because even when you talk to me about what it is, I'd like to see
Yes.
what it is. So maybe like a video at some of these.
Absolutely agree. So what we showed you this morning is our first video ever. It won't be our last. It won't be our last because it's, you know, you can, I can, to your point, I could say something when you see it, it's totally different. And I think once we start telling those stories on a video, right, and if we can get people to look at it, they're going to look at our industries a little bit different. And you know, in that regard, the Hartford region really is unique in some ways, because we've got an awesome manufacturing sector, but we've also got this awesome insurance sector that is employing a lot of people. So you've got white collar, blue collar, all high tech, and you know, it's interesting. You're hearing tech and everything now. Insurance isn't just insurance, it's insurtech, right? Manufacturing, you know, you look at Stanley Black & Decker and what they've done in downtown Hartford, the manufacturing, it is all about the convergence of technology and manufacturing. So the more we can do around technology and promoting technology, the health IT, the accelerator that Hartford Health is a convergence between healthcare and IT, right? How those two worlds are colliding. So there's a lot we can do, and we are looking forward to doing that. So thank you. Yes,
There is a program that's for manufacturing that the state has started. It's at Gateway in New Haven, and they're doing one in Middlesex. My husband actually teaches one of the sections. It's a 5-week program, and I'm sorry I forget the name of it, but we were out to dinner, and one of our neighbors came, and they were talking about how their son isn't a college-bound person, and he said, oh, it's a 5-week program. The state, they actually pay you to go. You know, he lives in South Windsor, so he's taking the train from Windsor down there. They pay your way there, and it's pumped. It's just for manufacturing, and they bring all companies in, and you know, like he works for, he's a consultant, so he works for other companies, brings them in. They interview right there, and it's in its 3rd rotation, and it's like taking off, and it's a great opportunity for anybody who doesn't have that, isn't college bound.
that's awesome. I mean, we need
It was on the
We need to
news.
get the word out on things like that,
Yeah.
because companies are, you know, you could put a student through a 5-week program and out they come on the other side with a job paying,
With a well-paying job.
$45,000, $50,000 a year. Not bad. Yes.
I think hand in hand with promoting the region and the tech jobs and everything else is, I know it's very important to younger people. They look at the school systems. They look at, you know, where are they going to be living? Where are their kids going to be attending school? Where are they going to be playing? The safety of the neighborhoods and that type of thing. And I think that this area has that in spades. So I think that needs to be cross-promoted along with the job opportunities and bringing companies here, is where the employees of those companies are going to live and play and not just work.
I totally agree. You know, I'm a new resident, essentially. When we moved here, we took a look at, well, actually, there were a few communities other than the Hartford region that we were looking at. You know, a few of the other communities had a very, very low tax rate. But as a family, we're making a decision about what are we going to do, where are we going to go. The low tax rate at first was very appealing And then we looked at the school districts and quickly figured out that, okay, well, we're gonna have to send our kids to private school. But so much for low taxes, it doesn't matter, because, you know, I'm still paying school tax in there. I'm just paying school tax for crappy schools. When we looked at the Hartford region, we did the same thing. We said, all right, you know, what are taxes? Well, okay, that's what the taxes are. But then we took the next step and said, what are the school districts? Right? And coming from where we were, we thought, okay, well, there's going to be one or two communities that are going to have great schools. So let's just figure out what that one or two community is. And it was like we started, you know, and went all the way around, went all the way around Hartford. Hartford needs a little help on the school district. But there were great schools in every community. So I think I was telling Peter, or maybe it was Jim, you know, when we were looking for a house, you know, that first cutoff is the school district. And that's what everybody's doing, right? If you've got kids, that first cutoff is the school district. But that didn't cut off any communities. So we had to go to the next level. Like, all right, well, you know, how do we begin the site selection process? And it's elimination. So how do we get to that next level of elimination? Because just going on schools wasn't enough, right? So you're absolutely correct. Part of the quality of life and part of the narrative that I've heard, and we all hear, is taxes. Taxes are too high. Yes, taxes are too high. But, right, if we're going to be out competing for jobs and talent, we have to have a better narrative than taxes are too high. We have to be able to talk about what do you get for your taxes. Right? And the school districts that we have here, I'm not sending my kids to private school. And, you know, not for nothing, you know, we moved here from Minnesota. Minnesota thinks they've got the best schools in the country. So, you know, we bought into that and thought, oh, you know, there's no way we're going to find as good a school here. My daughter's reading comprehension when she moved into our school district here, shot. So, enough of that nonsense. The schools here are great. We have to get out and tell that story, because if you're comparing us to a low-cost, low-tax state, that's where we make a difference. Those are the differences that we need to market. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sarah Gilligan. I'm the president of the board of directors of the Windsor Chamber and the owner of Cerebration Writing and Design. So it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Very briefly, I will thank the Hilton Garden Inn on behalf of the Chamber for hosting us this morning and feeding us. And as always, the town of Windsor, we'd like to thank you for being our partner on economic development in our town. And also thank you to all of you who have come this morning. Thanks for your interest and for your contributions also to Windsor's economy and our growth. And always with the Chamber, if you have any ideas or questions, the door to the Chamber is always open. Come talk with Adam. So I'll be as brief as I can introducing our next speaker. We're running a little shy of time. So David Rocha is a 33-year resident of Connecticut, and he's lived in Simsbury, where he and his wife Amy have raised 5 children. He's been a photojournalist with the Associated Press. He's been a product manager with IBM. But in 2002, he was coaching his daughter in Simsbury's Little League fast-pitch softball, and he fell in love. He fell in love with the sport of fast-pitch softball, and he recognizes a need for a place where girls could play their games and also train inside during the off-season. So very briefly, in 2008, he opened up the first Fast Pitch Nation in Bloomfield. 3 years later, he established the first travel softball tournament program for the United States Specialty Sports Organization. And within 4 years, he'd become the largest fast pitch tournament provider in New England. 2015, he hosted his first national tournament. So by then, he had recognized the need for a truly comprehensive facility where he could offer these teams a one-of-a-kind tournament and training experience. After a 2-year search, he selected the Day Hill Road site right here in Windsor. And the 11-field Fast Pitch Nation Park opened up for play on April 27th, and they are set to host the USSSA Nationals in July. So I took a little look around the website, and befitting a facility in which girls can learn, compete, improve, reach their potential, Fast Pitch Nation features plentiful, real bathrooms. And this is important, ladies, including 7 men's stalls and 11 women's stalls. That feels like a home run already, am I right? So David, welcome to the Windsor Business Breakfast, and most importantly, welcome to Windsor.
As a man with a daughter, with 4 daughters and a wife, and a business for women, if I don't know how to design bathrooms for women, I need to sit down. If there's anything I learned over the years is I don't try to please the fathers. They'll come and play and look at anything. But even when I opened up in Bloomfield, we painted the inside, so when the moms came and they go, I want my children to be here, and the first thing they want to know is, where are the bathrooms? So, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a kind of a whirlwind last few months as we got the park open. I don't know if anyone, for some of you who aren't familiar with the park yet, let me just do a couple things over here, and then we'll. Oh, but I left my glasses over here. So at Transportation Park is a 11-field ballpark that we've opened up on Day Hill Road. And I get the question a lot, like, what on earth would have made you do that? And as you mentioned earlier, I've been involved in this sport for a very long time. But in our part of the country, the girls who participate in travel sports, which is now the dominant methodology of youth sports, good or bad, recreational sports is in decline, and travel sports is in like a rocket ship, and that's just the way the world is at the moment. But in our part of the country, complexes like this don't exist. Where you came from in Minneapolis, where you have county-based government, parks like this exist everywhere because counties build them. But in New England, we have no county government. Therefore, there are no county projects, there is no county tax base, and at that point, it then just takes one crazy person like me to decide, well, we need to do this because it needs to be done. And so when I was doing tournaments in East Hartford, where we had fields from Pratt & Whitney, where we built the business, I knew in short order that we needed to have a permanent world-class type of environment for the girls of the region, and understand that the girls who play here are not what you think of in your local little leagues. Well, some of those girls do participate, but our season runs from April to November. I currently have teams coming from 17 states and 2 countries. We will probably bring in about 50,000 people through this park this year, and that's just the beginning. Next year it will go even larger than that. And this is the nature of the sport. I am every week being called by some other part of the country, some Division I program, some high-level team from California. Someone is calling me all the time saying, When will you have things for us? As well as all the other local teams. The sport of fast-pitch softball, unlike baseball for boys, which is kind of flat or slightly in decline, fast-pitch softball is quite like this. Here in Connecticut alone, I've registered more than 400 fast-pitch teams, and that's just in Connecticut. Within a 2-hour drive, I have about 1,500 fast-pitch teams are registered in USSSA. So and every weekend, I think Peter was mentioning he was looking at the license plates in the parking lot. Every weekend, it's all over New England, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, that we're bringing in folks. If you haven't had a chance to see the park, we're still under construction. We're almost done. The rain has been quite a challenge, but we're there. But we opened on time, and next weekend is our first, in which we'll have all 11 fields open. The last 4 are going to be completed this week. As I mentioned, we bring an awful lot of people to the park, and that's really the impact on the business community, right? That's the whole reason why a town or a county would want a park like this. And for this audience, I think this is the most important thing, right? This brings business. So that's why we're all doing this, right? We will generate more than $8 million in this area just on the people who are coming through. Just up to today, we currently have booked almost 9,000 room nights across all our partner hotels. I'm sure Gabe's happy about that. Here, we are working with 37 hotels and a few of our 2 primary hotels here, the Garden Inn and across the street at the Marriott, have been incredibly supportive with us. And with that, there's also jobs, hospitality, restaurants, gasoline. I learned today, I now employ 0.1% of all the jobs in Windsor. Wow. I'll take it. My job is to make sure that your children are gainfully employed, and I've been doing that a long time. I actually take that quite seriously. I have a lot of young people who work for me for all the years I've been doing this. I was just telling them I have folks who have just graduated college, who've been with me since they're in high school, who've gotten jobs in the area, who told me, Ms. Rocha, I'm coming back for another summer because I'm not missing the first year in the new park. So we teach our young people to be productive adults. For most of them, it's their first job they've ever had, and we want them to leave and go, wow, I really learned something. So we give them a lot of responsibility. If you come out to the park any weekend, you'll see zillions of people and plenty of employees who are running around doing everything. If you want to take a peek at our website, of course, I've been so busy, we have not yet posted any real photos, but I'll show you something better. And yes, I do promote the thing about the women's baskets. It really does work. But on our website, one of the things that people really seem to love is all of our games are all streamed live to the internet. This is a live photo of Field 7 in the background. They are working on Fields 8, 9, 10, and 11. Last weekend on 7 fields, we had 15,580 viewers watching games from 6 countries and most of the states in the country, in our country. I had a woman walk into our building this weekend, and said, "You got to hear this." I said, "What?" She said, my parents are home in Texas watching the game on their big new 80-inch screen. And she just texted me, she said, "Did you see that play?" and that's why we do it. That's why we did it. Everyone can participate. And so if you're ever, any weekend, just go to our website and you'll be shocked and amazed at the quality of play, the number of kids, the number of people out here just having fun. The sport, like any sport, we all get involved with sports. Like we all do, we get involved with our children, just like I did. I just happen to recognize a need in the market that others either just didn't see or didn't want to do anything about. What happened, we did it. But I do want to just say two things, and then I'll take any questions. You can't do any of this alone. The two folks that are here with me today, Rich Korea, many of you know. He is not only one of my best friends, but he is a great broker, and he's been my guru for, good Lord, 12 years, helping me navigate all the process of business and government to how we make a deal like this happen. And without him, this would never have happened. And who's now a 50-year partner in my lease is Mark Greenberg, who owns the property out there at 1001 Dale Road, which he understood immediately what we were trying to do and got on board with us immediately. Has been incredibly supportive as we built out the new park. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, I'll make a comment. And I met Dave 13 years ago, probably, when my daughter decided to play competitive softball. And David got her on the team, and it's a great experience. So anybody who hasn't been part of fast pitch softball, go out to the fields. And so my daughter played, I think, U14, U16, U18. I coached a number of teams. The tournaments are fantastic. The local teams, Dave makes play at 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. That's okay. But it makes such a big difference to these kids. And get out to the fields. It was known that Disney and ESPN Wide World of Sports had the best fields. I really think what Dave has done up here has brought a little bit of Disney right to Windsor. So get out there to the fields, take a look at just the incredible things that are going on in Windsor right now. And I wish you all the success. I remember the day that you said, "I'm quitting my job to do this full time." I thought you were nuts. I don't think you are anymore.
I look out at all the suits and ties, and my last day at IBM was May 30th, 2012, and I think on June 1st, I dropped off all the suits and the ties over in the Goodwill receptacle. I do not possess them any longer, and I was happy to get rid of them. But I learned a lot at IBM, I will tell you that. Yes, I mean, what we've created here is as a professional, a complex as you can find in any place in the country. We've done some new innovative things, the way that we've, for example, the streaming system that we're using to actually broadcast the games is not a commercial system we bought from somewhere. There was no company out there that had what I wanted for the quality that I needed, for the cost I wanted to pay, for the functionality I required. And so I worked with a young guy who right here in East Granby at Command Corporation. Command Corporation is a fantastic local video security company who does my alarm cameras at my building in Bloomfield. But they're very high-tech guys, they're very aggressive, and I went to them and I said, "John, here's what I want to build. I think you guys can build this. Let's work together." And we spent a couple of months researching, and we created a system that no one can believe that it works as great as it does, except I believe it, and that's just local innovation, and we certainly have that in our area.
How can local businesses either support or benefit from your?
Sure. Well, we do have a corporate partnership program. I will say that I at some point you'll probably all be hearing from me. I'll be honest with you, I have not. I'm so focused on building the park. I haven't been too heavy on the marketing of our partnerships, but many of the partners we have now have reached out to us directly. We have partnerships through our banner sponsored program on our outfield fences. Through we'll be doing digital advertising in our streams, and through our email marketing and through our website. If any of you are interested in learning about our corporate partnership program, we have some great partners. Hartford Healthcare is one of our key partners. It's hard to see in this picture, but you'll see there on the top of the scoreboard. They're also on site at every single pitch that is thrown at our events. Hartford Healthcare has medical staff on site in their own location for every event. We have the Hilton Garden Inn, one of our great sponsors as well. We will and Six Flags New England, another big sponsor. So we have that body of sponsors is growing to get promotion to your businesses out to the more than 50,000 people that'll be coming through, but even more than that, see and are exposed to what we're doing here. So if you go to our website, fastpitchnation.net, there's a page that says how to become a corporate partner. Otherwise, I'm sure in the near future you'll be hearing from me or someone on my staff about your interest. And I'll be hanging around here if anyone wants to talk about that.
I'm just going to say a word.
Thank
you very much for mentioning me, David. About 18 months ago, David and Rich called me up about this concept, and they convinced me on some busy day, because every day is busy for me, to come to Bloomfield to the indoor facility and show me a video. And the video was very, very compelling. And I decided when I walked out of the video and listening to David that this thing could happen. Let me tell you that over the last 18 months, there were so many obstacles for it to happen that any one of those obstacles could have screwed up the whole project. But together we worked through it and made this happen. It's an incredible place. I feel like it's mine. Right? And I look after it, I pick up after the garbage. It's an incredibly gorgeous place with a bunch of kids having a great time. One of the things I said to Dave when I leased the land to him is I said, we have to do this not really for the money. We got to do it for the kids. And we have to make this site something that this town and the state's going to be proud of for years and years to come. Because of the success in the park, and you can all see it by going on a Saturday or Sunday, because there are so many people and cars and fans of the game having a good time, we've decided to make this essentially a civic center of 150 acres in this area for not only fast pitching, but also some of you may have heard that we have a bid for the franchise, the National Women's Soccer League. We're hoping to get that bid soon and get it accepted and build a stadium here of 7,500 people. We also have under lease a new hotel that's going to start construction in 3-4 months after approvals. We have a concept for a 150,000 square foot indoor soccer facility, which will have a regulation size, well actually 2 regulation size soccer fields, lacrosse, other indoor activities as well, because we're sorely lacking with indoor facilities. So this is going to be a mecca for the Northeast, a regional center. I have to personally thank David and Rich for bringing this to me and to convince me to do it, because this is now the beginning of something even larger than this. So I'm very, very proud of it. Everybody has to go to the park. This is an incredible thing. Just walk in and see a game. There's some stands behind the 11 fields. Sit down, you'll have a good time. So again, thank you guys for coming to me, and thank you for the presentation. David is one of the most determined men you will ever meet. Okay? I thought I was determined, but he's doubly determined. And if ever I have to quit my job, he's going to take it over because, and his kids, the great kids.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, you know, ironically, when in 2015, when I called Rich, I was hosting my first national tournament at the rented park in East Hartford, and I was showing it off to the mayor of East Hartford. I was driving her around with a golf cart. I was so proud of myself. And she turned to me and she said, "What are you going to do when this is gone?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Oh yeah, Pratt & Whitney has been trying to unload this property for years. They can't wait to get rid of it." And I was stunned, and literally that night I called Rich on the phone. I said, "Rich, we need to build a park." And I said, the season ends in a week, and let's get started. And we started that process. And ironically, the very first place he and I came was to 1001 Day Hill Road. And I said, we need to find a place like this, in an area like this. But we can't ever afford this, so we have to really figure out what municipality could work with us on municipal land, because we just figured commercial land was never going to work. And we spent the next 2 years visiting every municipal office, it seemed like, in the state, getting a sobering education in local politics. And, just purely dumb luck, Rich invited me to speak at Simsbury High School for a class that he was involved in teaching. And when I was there to speak, I was chit-chatting with the other speakers about what we each do. And one of the other speakers said, "You know, I'm an attorney, and I have a client who I think would really like to work with you." I said, "Okay," and that client was Mark Greenberg. And days later we had a meeting, and days later after that we had a deal. So you never know how these things work out. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. I'm going to take 5 minutes to test your energy level. I'm Adam Gudgeon. I'm Executive Director of the Windsor Chamber of Commerce. And like the Davids, I am on a new adventure. I've been on this job for about 6 months. And the key question for me has been, what is the point of a town chamber of commerce in 2019? And it's been a difficult question to ask. And it was a question I knew at the outset I'd have to answer. Because, like any enterprise, do we succeed by never questioning our fundamental purpose and staying still? No. We must adapt or perish. And so when I started here, I embarked on a listening tour with the aim of kind of figuring an answer to that question, but found that there's a more fundamental question that had to be answered first. Oh, I've got something projected on me. And that is, what is Windsor? I was born and raised here, so I knew Windsor as a beautiful, integrated, diverse, and peaceful community. And it is. And when I did my research to see whether I could succeed in this job, moving here from out of town, I recognized that Windsor is a part of an integrated regional economy, and that Hartford and Windsor, like small cities and towns across the country, are poised for success if we keep our hands on the tiller and don't lose our way. So, as I asked community leaders and business leaders like you, what is Windsor? I heard a lot of those sentiments. I also heard Windsor is a great transportation infrastructure and a highly educated workforce within a 30-mile radius. And we need to not take those for granted and keep working to our strengths. What I didn't hear a lot from the business community is a sort of ontological attachment to this 30-square-mile political subdivision in which we happen to be located. In fact, I heard some annoyance about the fragmented nature of economic development efforts and all the local, regional, and state actors that are involved in community building and service delivery around here. So with those answers in mind, my mission for at least the next 6 months is to keep working and developing our efforts on promoting infrastructure and transportation, workforce development. We're going to do a lot with entrepreneurship support. We're going to keep giving back to this big-hearted community that we're in. And are we going to do this alone? Absolutely not. It's all through strategic partnerships. So I'm glad to have heard a lot about strategic partnerships today and the recognition that we're part of something bigger than just Windsor. So expect to hear from me pretty soon about what we can do together to keep this community and this integrated regional economy proud, prosperous, and strong. Thank you so much for coming today. See you next year.